research. Desktop and tablet are definitely diminishing, and trends and statistics from all kinds of organisations are showing that, and that trend will continue. The piece that's absolutely key is payments. Payments now are becoming much more seamless with one click to buy. Lots and lots of organisations offering saved card type functionality and moving into the physical space as well as the digital space. And that will really start to see a rise in mobile commerce and mobile sites being really optimised. And the desktop typically today is still the preferred method of transacting, but that will continue to reduce as mobile payments really take a strong hold from a customer engagement perspective. And you can see that really, when you look at the likes of things like Uber, and we're all familiar with Uber and Halo and other apps where you basically have no friction at all when you want to purchase, and it just makes it very, very seamless for the customer and easy to purchase.
Cathy, one second. I don't want to move on your slides. Can you tell me if I'm on the right slide, and if just let me know when to move the slides along as you're talking? Is this the right one?
Yes, that's fine.
Brilliant. No problems. Carry on.
So the other thing I was really saying is that it's about connecting. So we didn't quite finish on that. So in terms of mobile and where we are, is that when you're talking about mobile and optimizing mobile, then it is also a question of being able to connect across all of the touch points. So very much so your customers, looking at your devices, the data and the channels, and mobile coming first. So many organizations adopted a mobile first approach, and yet now you're seeing quite a few organizations adopting more of a device agnostic approach. So looking at, instead of having mobile apps, or indeed instead of having mobile sites, it's looking at having a site which is very much device agnostic, that's responsive and can scale depending on the consumer's device. Not everybody is in the situation where they can support that, so I think it's very key that you look at how you can optimize what you've got, and without having to move from one approach to another. I think the point that you have to get across with your business teams and your technical teams is more about, it is about mobile and where mobile is coming from. I've already kind of talked a lot about reducing friction, and friction is very much around the areas primarily to do with payments. That's a huge piece there, and I think most of you will recognise that. Also with regards to taxonomy and search. So again, that basically comes back to also how you manage your copy, your editorial, your content, and those areas are very key, and how those can also really drive conversion for you, and there are many kind of use cases where you can increase conversion very much by just making the customer journey very easy to move through your pages, etc. And then adding value. Adding value is one of the key areas that you can see many retailers starting to focus on. So there are basics in terms of value, so services. So what services can you offer that are appropriate to your brand? Delivery and fulfillment are very much leading the way. So how can you provide completely flexible options with regards to delivery and fulfillment, and there are plenty of examples of people who are doing that absolutely brilliantly. I think all of us know Amazon with their Sunday deliveries, and just actually being able to contact you very easily when they're trying to deliver something is almost a delight when you're having a delivery where In the past, deliveries have all been around about having to stay in and it being inconvenient. Click and collect is a trend that's here to stay. How can you organise yourself operationally to ensure that click and collect is as seamless a service when you come in to collect the item as it is when it's being delivered to your home or your hotel. Other areas where you can add value, feedback and reviews, which can be extremely appropriate for some brands and for some items, beauty in particular, electronics in particular, apparel even for certain, again, demographics where it works really well. Account info, so again, how many times do you have to enter your account info? How easy is it to log in? Can I see my transaction history? Can I see my delivery status? Again, all kinds of areas where you can add value hugely. Contact methods, so if I do need to get hold of someone, can I click to call? Can I click to chat? Is it easy for me to, speak to a real person? Can I do that 24/7? All of these services are reasonably basic now, but it's about how you integrate that across your platforms to ensure that it's seamless regardless of where the consumer is and in terms of where they're trying to transact and engage with you. The other one is around thinking about things like gifting, personal shopping and personal styling. How can you deliver the same kind of service that you provide in a physical store? How can you do that remotely? How can you provide a gifting service 24/7 around peak? I was interested to see Jaeger offering that service over the peak period in the US. So again, it's something different that other retailers aren't necessarily doing, but really leveraging that 24/7 culture. I'm just going to move to the next slide, Matt. So really, again, really quite passionate about this. I mean, I started my career off in retail, and I wasn't a tech person, and I think it's really important that the journey starts with the customer, and we talk about customer centricity and do you know your customers. We can introduce all kinds of technology into a store, really cool, exciting stuff if you work in IT and you think it's that's really interesting, but does the consumer understand it? Can the consumer interact with it? And certainly we still see, most retailers that I talk to, we're still seeing that where technology adds value is very much when it's assisted. A great salesperson is going to engage with your consumer. They're going to show them videos and show them product, tell them where they can get it from, help them to complete that purchase. But that the technology can enable that, but it can also, if it's not directed in the right way, then it can put the consumer off if they can't use the tech, etc. And it really is very much about getting it right for your brand. So it's more about that consumer centric approach rather than just having technology for technology's sake. Very much I think about learning, so testing and learning. Don't be afraid to try things out. Does it work? We're in a day, we're in an age where actually doing small proofs of concept or trialing different services can really, you can do that quite quickly at low expense without having to, without having to do a lot of integration work. You can do small trials and prove just to see how it does work. We are very much, I think, in a 24/7 culture, and that very much demands a 24/7 service to a certain degree, and that's, I think, you can really see that moving forward. And we were talking, I was at a conference earlier on in the week and talking very much about the fact that, you can see that people have an app for everything now for, and this age of a sharing economy where people are sharing cars and sharing drives, sharing their houses with, things like Airbnb. And we are very much driving, that app for everything. But from a brand perspective, it's absolutely important and vital that if you do have a mobile app, that it's right for your brand and that it adds value to your customer journey. It's not just about transacting and purchasing. It's about brand engagement and very much about driving your brand's messaging and bringing home messages about your brand.
Cathy, do you have any examples of what you feel, perhaps where retailers make mistakes and perhaps what the biggest mistakes they've made in this particular area?
I think often it's, where mistakes can be made is where you kind of follow a trend to maybe have digital in your store, in your physical, in a physical site. If you don't have content, or if you don't have enough content, or if you don't have a way of managing that content, then you're kind of not really using that technology in the way that it's designed to really try and engage with the client. I've seen examples of where, walking into retailers and the content is, beautiful, beautiful landscape screens with portrait content. And it just doesn't really drive home that message. Or you've got content that's, playing for, the same content. It's not kind of really engaging. Or there are people speaking and you can't hear what they're saying because there's no, experience around what's coming from the content in the video. Typically as well, it's like mobile pause as an example where, again, from a consumer perspective, it's about trying, how do you put a mobile devices into stores to really help your customer journey. So again, it's making sure that it really addresses some of the areas where you might have friction or where you can really assist the customer with the purchase that they're trying to make in your store. It's not just about transacting and finalising the payment. It's very much about building that interaction and engagement with the client and choosing the right moment.
Fantastic. That's great. Right.
So the right digital strategy, I think it's, it can be quite confusing. Where do you start? I think the key part is to really start, in my experience, it starts with the brand strategy and the brand vision and really having an understanding of what that is and collaborating across the departments to, your functions and your departments to deliver that. It's not so much about, IT or technology coming up with a cool device or a cool application that they want to use in the store, but it's about building that into what's right for your brand. And it's absolutely one of the biggest parts to look at is really about adopting some old-fashioned fundamentals. You've got to have the right brand messages. You've got to have the right excellence product. You've got to be able to be, shouting about that product and inspiring with that product. So engaging brand messages and again, the biggest part of it is around exceptional service. So again, that service should be exceptional, whether it's, a remote service for your websites, for your mobile apps or whatever you might have from a digital perspective, or whether it's in-store. So constantly surprising and delighting. But those old-fashioned fundamentals don't go away with technology and with digital transformation. They just become more heightened in terms of how do you roll those into your customer journey. So we talk a lot about, you know, and when I was at Burberry, this was very, very key. So the brand has control, and we talk a lot about inspiring. So inspiring, you know, inspiring brand advocates, connecting with your fan base as such. You know, it's about storytelling and about giving a message around the product or around the heritage or around your uniqueness that you have as a brand, whatever's, you know, appropriate to you. If you can inspire, then you can acquire. You can acquire fans. You can acquire aspirational fans. You can acquire customers. You don't have to offer, you know, a loyalty program in order to acquire a customer. You don't have to have. You can engage and inspire customers whilst they're in your store, and it's, you know, very, very key. You know, if you can capture 87% of the customers that, you know, 80–90% of the customers that you're, you know, working with or engaging with, then you've got a great big base there that you can work with. And then you continue to cultivate that. So you respond to signals, if people like things, if people purchase things, if people post a review about things. You know, you've got that continual cultivation cycle where you know, you can say thank you for coming into our Regency store and buying that particular product. You can send them a message about new product launches. You can then, you know, continue that engagement very much around responding to those signals that you can see coming back from your customer base. And then continue to interact, so re-engaging if, you know, you need to reactivate a customer that you can see that hasn't been in for, you know, X amount of months, whatever appropriate for your brand. And just really remarketing, re-engaging, rewarding. So rewarding if, you know, you've got a particularly your high VIPs or your clients that, you know, are constantly purchasing with you. And all of that really is very much centered around, you know, going back to probably one of the threads throughout this is about knowing your customer journeys. And knowing your customer journeys is about connecting the data that you have across your touch points. And it's not so much about big data. It's just about the data that you have. So it can be small data, and you can start with small data in order to understand your customer journey. And you know, people talk a lot about big data and having it all there, but actually you can start small, and then you can start to grow, and you can lay on, you know, more data as you acquire it. But I think those are the fundamentals. You have to work with your, you know, the business teams have to lead. There has to be a strong brand engagement, a strong marketing influence, you know, with the brand, and that's what's key.
I really like what you're saying there, Cathy, about, you know, taking it back to basics with a lot of it. I think a lot of the reason why I feel that some of the brands, it's not a seamless experience, is because I think people are sort of trying to do things differently on their digital platforms rather than looking at what they've already got in their physical stores. How are they interacting with customers there and sort of bringing it together? And sort of, I think people are often trying to think outside of the box without seeing what's in the actual box first, if that sort of makes sense. I think looking at what you've already got and just taking that online and seeing and testing things first.
No, absolutely, it's a great point. I think if you're one of your USPs is you know, excellent service, or then how do you adapt that into the digital world? But it needs to be fundamentally as excellent across your channels, so responsive and delighting, and you know, and you can see where, you know, it's quite old-fashioned principles are really just coming to the forefront. They're things that I think we appreciate very much a handwritten note to say thank you, a digital, social note to say,
Yeah.
so glad. Very, very simple.
Absolutely. Excellent. Well, the next, the one after this now, Cathy.
Yeah, no, we're kind of there now. I was on the right digital strategy, which is the last slide.
Great. Brilliant. I think then, in terms of questions that we've got, I'm going to invite people to come onto the line if they want to. If not, then I've got a few questions that were asked before. I'm not sure whether the people that asked those questions are on the call. What we tend to find, Cathy, is that a lot of the people that have signed up will catch up on the recording. So I think a lot of the people that asked questions might not be on the live call.
Okay.
But I'm going to open it up. If anybody would like to ask Cathy a question live now on the call, just please type into the chat box and I'll unmute your line so you can speak directly to Cathy. No, nothing. Anyone wants to come onto the call live, which is fine. So what I will do is go back to the questions that were asked prior to the event. So one of the questions, Cathy, is, do you consider the online shopping for beauty products and gadgets will outstrip the high street? And do you have any advice on how to lead a brand to this particular option?
I think that's quite a difficult question in terms of both, very, very different markets. Beauty, again, is, I think there are a number of different consumer behaviours around beauty. So there can be impulse purchases, which you could really see online shopping and doing that well. New perfume launch, and if you've got a scan this to buy button, you imagine just saying, oh gosh, I've seen that, I really like that, I'm just going to scan and buy now. So you can really introduce different journeys for that kind of impulse purchase. Certainly some, in terms of some beauty products, it might be more around demonstration, tutorials. Again, tutorials can be very much done both digitally as well as going to a store. So it's an interesting convergence really of both those worlds, and I think with both of them it's around the experience. So with gadgets and electronics, if you're really confident about what you're buying, there's going to be a number of consumers that will research. They're absolutely sure this is the gadget I want, I understand it, I don't need to go into a store and be, have an explanation of the different features. I'm really absolutely 100% sure on what I want. Other people will be looking for advice, and they will still prefer that face-to-face experience of being shown, being demonstrated to. So I think, in the digital world, you have to cater for both. You have to have a way of catering for both those, those different types of behaviour.
Excellent. That's great. Okay, moving on then to another question. Somebody has asked how they would ensure a consistent customer journey across markets where they're working with a distributor or a franchiser, franchise partner. I think that can sometimes be quite difficult. What are your thoughts on that?
Again, it's very much about brand first. So it's about maintaining control. So you very much have to maintain control when it's to do with your brand. Franchise, again, it's about picking the right partners. So about having the partners that really you can engage with, that are a good cultural fit for your brand. And then it's about, being able to provide them with training, brand awareness, can make them feel involved and part of the brand. It's a very important, it can be a great way to, put a foot in a market that you're not particularly, certain whether it's right for your brand. So it's a good approach to have. But the key part of it is it's, you have to maintain that control, particularly over brand messages, over how the product's displayed. So it's just really about developing a partnership and making sure that partnership is sustainable, and that you monitor and control, and that you work well with the various partners that you choose.
Excellent. And the last question I want to ask you is that somebody's asked, and you've touched on it a little bit because you did speak about Burberry briefly, but somebody has asked specifically, obviously Burberry has embraced the digital sphere a lot faster than many other brands. They want to know how Burberry was able to do so particularly quickly, and what the level of spend was, if you're able to answer that.
I don't think I can probably answer the level of spend. I think in terms of how they were able to do that quickly, they had great teams of people that were very focused and had a very clear vision, and that leadership came from the top. A very strong, clear vision, both creatively and from a commercial perspective. And it was around digital, so it was very around about digital and how, as a brand, it was known, as kind of the digital DNA as part of the brand, as being cool and luxury, but cool and digital. And it's very key that has to go through every thread of your organisation. It has to be embedded in everything that you do, and it's that's absolutely key to get that right. I think in terms of can you do it without having lots of funding, yes you can. You don't have to. There are different ways. You can leverage partnerships that you've already got. You can work with startups. You can do things differently, which doesn't mean that you have to have massive amount of investment to do to try similar things, or to look at proofs of concepts and drive different experiences that are appropriate for your brand.
Fantastic.
So again, I think, yeah.
I think that's one of the key things, isn't it? I think a lot of brands are trying to do a lot of things at once, whereas actually if it's a case, perhaps they should be focusing on one thing and doing that really well and scaling that, and then moving on to the next thing.
Yeah, I think sometimes there's quite a lot of, there's a lot of, it's a tough market at times, and there's a certain level of reactivity that goes with that in terms of shall we do this or shall we do that. And it's about having confidence in your vision and your strategy for the brand to drive that through. So knowing that, believing that that is the right thing for your brand, and having the confidence that this is what we need to do. But also having a culture where you can try things. So you can try things in small ways, having one or two stores that you might try certain things in to see how they work, trying things online, being able to do it quickly is absolutely key. Being able to implement changes and then take them down if they're not successful. Typically 60% of changes that are put in place aren't always successful, but you still then might get 30 or 40% that are successful. So it's about being able to be agile, both in mindset as well as in terms of looking at how overcoming obstacles. So how do you, if this is something that you believe that you really want to do, how do you say, well, we're going to try it. We're going to overcome all the obstacles that are in place in order so that we can try it to prove that it's right for the brand. Were there any other questions that you wanted to ask?
Cathy. I was just talking then and didn't realise that my microphone was actually muted, so apologies. I was just saying that that's brilliant, and thank you very much for sort of sharing your insight. It's been invaluable, and what I tend to find is that questions do come back after, so I'll email anything over to you if we have any more specific things. But thank you very, very much for joining us and sharing your knowledge today.
Lovely. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.